Let's go to Luke chapter 10. Luke chapter 10, picking back up with victory in Jesus. And we were looking at the topic of stress within the study of victory in Jesus. And last time we met, we looked at the pace of Mary and studied that. And this is all in contrast kind of to Martha here. And Luke chapter 10, we're going to pick up verses 38 through 42. Now it came. Well, I didn't hear any pages turning, so I thought everybody was there.
Open them ears. 10 what?
38 through 42.
All right.
Now it came to pass as they went that he entered into a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha received him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, which also sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word. But Martha was cumbered about with much serving, and came to him and said, Lord, dost thou not care that my sister hath left me to serve alone? Bid her therefore that she help me. And Jesus answered and said unto her, Martha, Martha, thou art careful and troubled about many things, but one thing is needful, and Mary hath chosen that good part which shall not be taken away from her. So this idea here of the place of Mary is what we're going to look at here tonight. And being at the right place is important. I was talking to somebody just last week. They were trying to invite people to church, and one of the people they were trying to invite says, well, I don't have to be a Christian and go to church. No, but it's definitely a good place to be. It's supposed to be a place that helps you. It's supposed to be a place that helps you to focus on the Lord, and focus really on what He wants to do in your life. Being in the right place is important during a tornado. Wouldn't we agree that if you're in the wrong place during a tornado, you could have some very disastrous consequences. So being in the right place during a tornado, ultimately, in my frame of mind, is in a basement. But I know around here you don't always have a basement, so it's that interior room of your house, stay away from windows. We all know the drill. But here, this idea here of Mary, she was at Jesus' feet, and it was the right place for her to be. And something to think about here, being at someone's feet, this was an ancient posture of disciples or learners at this time. So if you were going to learn, you were going to sit at that person's feet and learn. They sat at the feet of their teachers, that is, beneath them in a humble place. Hence, Paul represented as being brought up at the feet of a man named Gamaliel in Acts chapter 22 and verse 3. When it is said that Mary sat at Jesus' feet, this means that she was literally a disciple of his. And she listened attentively to his instructions, and she was very anxious to learn his doctrine or to learn his teaching. So a couple things here tonight to think about when you're at the place of Mary. The place of Mary, it was first of all, it was a humble place. It was a humble place. And when we go to sit at the feet of Jesus ourselves, now Jesus isn't sitting in this room for us to be sitting at His feet, but when we're opening up the Word at home or when we come to church, we need to have that attitude of sitting at His feet in that humble spirit. In James chapter 4 and verse 10, James writes there that, humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and He shall lift you up. And that's where we run into a lot of problems where we don't humble ourselves and realize, hey, when we go to a service, we need to have that mentality. Hey, Lord, what do you want to teach me today? What do you have for me to learn? What do you have for me to incorporate into my life? In 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 5 through 7, Peter writes this, likewise, ye younger, submit yourselves unto the elder. Yea, all of you be subject one to another, and be clothed with humility, for God resisteth the proud, and giveth grace to the humble. Boy, we could say a lot right there about God resisting the proud and giving grace to the humble. I need to move on. I'd end up taking too much time if I stop there. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time, casting all your care upon him, for he careth for you. So when we are in that place of humble submission, and we're casting our cares upon him, the Lord's going to lift us up, and he's going to work in our lives, and he's going to teach us some things, and he's going to show us some things. The world praises the loud or the argumentative. However, there is nothing showy about a prayer closet. That's a quote from a pastor who I found his notes on this particular passage. That the world praises the loud and the argumentative. And boy, isn't that the truth? When you turn on, whether it's CNN, which I know most people probably don't watch CNN, but if you turn on CNN or even Fox News, the loud and the argumentative are the ones that get attention. They're the ones that they get the airtime. That's where the ratings come from for these cable news stations, is whoever's loud and argumentative, that's who they want on the show. They want someone that's a little bit controversial. But however, when we're humbling ourselves, when we're in a prayer closet or we're in a prayer meeting like this isn't something that gets a lot of attention. This isn't something that's popular. What we're here doing on Wednesday nights, this is not popular. However, I feel like it's important. I feel like it's important for us to come together and pray, for us to come together and bear what's on our hearts when the recording is off, obviously, and talk about what's going on and pray about it in a specific way. And I don't know about you guys, but when we're praying together, and especially when we're praying all together about a particular issue, whether it always involves somebody here, it always involves somebody in our ministry, but I don't know about you guys, but I feel like when we're all joining together and we're all praying, that we're all taking part of that burden to the Lord, that we're all doing what we can to shoulder that. That's how I feel. And that's to kind of sum things up. That's why I think it's part of why I think it's important to have a prayer meeting, and whether it's a handful of us or however many of us that's here, it's my heart to continue doing this because prayer is important. And when you get a group of people together and we're praying for the same thing and we're trying to go the same direction in prayer, God, I believe, can do some amazing things. So the place of Mary, the place Mary was at here in our text, the place we need to be at is, first of all, a humble place. The second thing we see is that it is an honorable place. Mary was here at an honorable place. We see that the Lord here gives honor to Mary. Mary wasn't seeking honor. Mary wasn't here doing what she was doing to say, well, I think Jesus is going to be really impressed with me being here sitting at his feet while my sister goes cleaning and doing what she was doing. I believe Mary was anxious to hear his teaching, as I mentioned earlier. She wanted to hear everything that he had to say. She wanted to submit her life completely to whatever he was teaching, whatever he was doing. And the Lord gave her honor here when, if you're still there in Luke 10, where he says that in verse 42, that Mary hath chosen that good part which shall not be taken away from her. So this is an honorable thing for her here. Often we're driven to attain the honors of the world while neglecting the honor of being with Jesus if we're not careful. Boy, the world wants to bestow all sorts of honors on us, and I'm not saying that every honor you get outside of Christ is bad, but what I'm saying is that we can't let that neglect the honor of allowing Jesus to influence and shape the direction of our lives. In Hebrews chapter 10, verses 19 through 22, we're told, having therefore, brethren, boldness to enter into the holiest by the blood of Jesus Christ. How do we have boldness? Obviously because of Jesus Christ. So we are to be bold. We are to be bold when we come to Him. Not bold in ourselves, but bold because of Jesus Christ. We should have that desire to come to Him by a new and living way, which he hath consecrated for us through the veil, that is to say, his flesh. And having a high priest over the house of God, let us draw near with a true heart and full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled from an evil conscience and our bodies washed with pure water. You know, when I read that last part, I think of Jesus when he's talking to the woman at the well, and he talks about giving everlasting water, and that he is that source of the everlasting water. So sitting at the feet of Jesus, being submitted to him, that it's an honorable place. It's an honorable place, and you're not going to get your name in lights sitting at the feet of Jesus, being submitted to him. You're not going to get a whole bunch of rewards. But I cannot get away from the last part of verse 42, which Jesus says about Mary, which shall not be taken away from her. I believe reading that, Jesus is talking about joy. Joy is something that is not taken from you. Happiness comes and goes, does it not? We can be happy one day and riding the tide high and be happy and have a good day, and then the next oh man, this is I'm having kind of a long day, right? And that's reality, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's reality. But joy, I heard it described this way one time, and I really believe it describes joy is this peaceful calm that you have no matter what happens. Joy doesn't mean you're happy all the time. You know, the song we sometimes sing, "It is well with my soul," and I think Dave probably has talked about the history of that song. The guy that, if I remember correctly, the guy that wrote that song, he'd lost his family. But the reason he said, "It is well with my soul," it wasn't because he had a great day go on, because he didn't. Because that was not a good day, but he had joy. It is well with his soul, because he had a relationship with God. He didn't blame God. You know, I talked to somebody this week that they blamed God for a family member's death, and they said, "I'm not going to believe in him anymore." And I flat out told them, I tried to be kind and comforting, but I flat out told him, "Listen, you can't. If you blame him, then you have to believe in him. But if you're not going to believe in him, then he isn't to blame because he doesn't exist. You cannot blame him and then not believe in him." Like I said, I tried to be very. And this was a family member of mine. This is actually a cousin, and it's like if he's to blame, then he exists. If he doesn't exist, then he's not to blame. Right? I mean, you can't have it both ways.
Satan has a hand in that.
Yeah, Satan definitely has a hand in that. I would agree. This is a delusion, and
Don't let Satan win.
yeah, don't let Satan win. Absolutely, because Satan wants to steal the joy. But yeah, an honorable place. We need to understand that there's an honorable place there, sitting at Jesus' feet and allowing him to mold our lives and shape our lives. And what Jesus tells us, sometimes it's countercultural to what we may have grown up around, and definitely what we see. And I tell you what, the more that I try to just follow just what we look at in Mark, just the words of Jesus, it sometimes goes against how I feel at the time. But part of walking with the Lord is saying, boy, this sure doesn't feel like what I want to do, but I'm trusting that your way is better than mine, and that there's good consequences ahead as a result of obedience. Not that I'm going to get a reward, but that there's good consequences, because we know in Galatians chapter 2 tells us that whatsoever we sow, we're going to reap.